Do you want me to tell the story?
No, I'll tell the story. I'll tell the story. For 10 years, 12 years, before we came to Christ Church, I knew that I was supposed to be in church, but I turned my back on God. I turned it 100% on Him, and the things I said we won't be able to say here, but I told God He wasn't for me anymore. Christians weren't for me. And one morning we had a tug like I'd never had before. It was kind of like more like a yank. And we got up, we put on white tennis shoes, jeans, and white shirts. And we said, let's go down and check that church out. We looked at it online. It looked relatively innocuous. And we snuck in the back and came into Christ Church. But of course, when Pastor mentioned new visitors, of course my arms didn't go up, and if she thought about putting hers up, I did this, made sure it didn't go up, because we're not going to let anybody know who we are.
We're not going to sign anything.
That's right.
We brought cash, no checks. We're not going to know who we are.
Anyway, we're walking down the street, and we were literally halfway down Soto before we made eye contact and said, well, what do you think? And at that moment, we both kind of skipped. I mean, kind of like, yeah, we're home, you know? We're home. After, this is silly, I'm crying here. After turning my back on the Lord, after not wanting to be around Christians, after not wanting to be anywhere near anything like this, not only were we in the back of the church hiding 2.5 years ago, here we are today, 2.5 years later, and I guess we're going to be up on the screen this week.
We're in the front.
I was so comfortable, still am, that I knew there had to be some kind of catch. There had to be something wrong. There had to be snakes in the basement, maybe. Y'all were, hiding them. That's what I even asked the pastor. I said, come on, Every other church has been political. There's been some kind of warring going on. There's been cliques. There's been something that was just turned you away, And we haven't turned away from you. We've kept turning in closer, and we love it. We love it here. We love everybody here. I don't know. You know what I think? I think Jim was the very first person that I had the courage to say, do you have a church home?
Growing up Catholic, things were a little bit different. They weren't, things were almost frowned upon. My mom, we grew up poor and couldn't afford a lot of things. Part of that was, not donating to the church. And a lot of times there were comments made or little things said here or there that I eventually learned upon that it was just looked down, and I kind of felt like church was a place to go to get away from all those things. And it seemed like at that church, at that time, that was brought back into the society. So there was no release from any of that. So it turned me away from church for a long time. Became that Christmas and Easter kid that would only go because I had to go, rather than being an active participant. I'd go in, I was tired, would look at my watch, couldn't wait to go home. But back in November, it changed a little bit. I'd always seen Pastor at the deli, Jason's Deli, and I never knew him as the pastor here. I just knew him as an individual that would come in and we'd talk, and there was an immediate rapport, and it was a comfort level. And would always enjoy seeing him and chatting him up and everything else. And we never talked about church, we just talked about life in general. And there was one evening where Kim and Linda and Eric and Stephanie came in, and it just happened to be Pastor's birthday. And we were sitting outside and we were just kind of small talking, and he asked where I went to church. And I was kind of like, oh, here we go. I don't go to church. I'm not much of the church type. And he's like, oh, well, you got to come to my church.
I remember that evening very clearly thinking, I don't think I have ever just kind of hung out with anyone from my church before. So that in and of itself was a new experience, but a truly lovely experience. I was really having a good time. And then Jim is there and starts chit-chatting with the guys. I guess they'd been talking a while. I had been a little bit out of that. And all of a sudden, in all this conversation, I hear Kim say to Jim, well, why don't you come to church? And I remember how I felt that moment. I thought, okay, now what is this person going to say? I don't even know this person, and we just invited him to church, and we just make him feel uncomfortable? That's what I remember. I was absolutely mortified. And I just remember kind of the unfolding, and Kim was just so comfortable about it. It was like nothing. Oh, here's my card. Call me and we'll go to church. And I'm thinking, yeah, it's like, say, let's grab a beer. It was very bizarre. So anyway, when I saw Jim's reaction, though, it was so cool because he was just like, all right. And I could see, like, he might actually come. But I quickly, in my Catholic ways, was just very dismissive. I'm like, he's never coming to church. As a matter of fact, he's just being nice because they've just been talking about football or whatever it was they were talking about, and we will not see him. And so, but then it just went on, and I recovered from my mortification, and we moved on for the rest of the evening, and it was lovely. But never did I expect to actually see Jim Morby in church.
After listening to him talk about it, there was so much passion in what he said, and he was so excited about it that my fiance and I had talked about prior to, let's go to church, let's find a place where we can worship and start our life together. And it just happened that Kim had mentioned that, and when he mentioned it was so close, it was almost too convenient not to at least give it a shot. And went home and we talked about it, and she's like, great, let's do it this week. And sure enough, we came that Sunday. I think it was like 2 weeks prior to Thanksgiving. And immediately when we walked in the door, I saw Pastor, and I was like, wow. And I saw Kim out in the parking lot, and he greeted me and was like, hey, thanks for coming, and I hope you really enjoy it. And I kind of came in with glass half full kind of a thing, like, if nothing else, I lost a Sunday, and instead, when I came in, it was just like I saw so many familiar faces and really enjoyed everything about it. Everybody was super, super friendly. And it was genuine. It wasn't just like, peace be with you, peace be with you. It was like, hi, I'm John, how are you? You look familiar, where do you work, what do you do, so on and so forth. So it was very welcoming in that aspect.
Well, now I say hello to everybody. I'm up in the balcony. I'm a shield a little bit because we are balcony people, but I actually make an absolute concerted effort to say hello to every single person up there. And what's so interesting actually about it is that I will go to the corner. For the person who's sitting all the way in the corner in the back of the balcony and can't get any further away, I will walk all the way over to that person because that person's usually not getting up. The person's sitting there for a reason. They're like me, although I was sitting closer in the middle. I can just feel that they're probably just not wanting to be sold to like a car salesman. That's kind of what you're afraid of. And so I just make sure I go over there and I extend my hand and I ask them what their name is and I say hello, and that is it. You're not, I'm going to take away that preconceived notion. That's my idea anyway. I'm trying to take away someone's preconceived notion because I know exactly what that can be for someone.
I think we've only missed 2 Sundays since that time, and now I've become similar to Kim, not in that big of an essence, but I talk about church quite a bit, and I talk about how much I enjoy coming to church, and it's no longer a chore. I enjoy coming to church, and if I don't come to church, that whole week is different. Kind of like for me, not going to the gym, mentally I'm just not all there. But we talked in the group the other day, the connection group the other day, about your spiritual light, and mine was that little bulb that was kind of flickering. It wasn't out, but it wasn't strong at all. But recently, through coming to church and talking with you guys and Pastor and talking with Ramari, we've really kind of turned the corner, and my light's gotten much, much brighter. Long way to go, but much, much brighter than it's ever been. To the point where whenever we sit down and eat, we always pray. We give thanks. There's been times where after a long week, I just go into my man room and spend some quiet time with me and Jesus, and just pray, and we talk. And I don't ask for very much. I just talk a lot, and hopefully he hears what I say, and things go from there.
I love it here. I love it here. Asking people here, there's nothing to it anymore.